but I'm
Hello, welcome to another episode of Faces of the MRM. Right now we have Erin Reed, good friend, member of National Coalition for Men. Erin, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you, Tom? Oh, blue orange.
That's
Anyway,
fine. Thomas, Boo, anything works. So I've known you for over a year now.
wow. Yeah.
From you're in NCFM, and you're part of the Men Are Human Discord. And every time we talk, it's just you have so many great insights. And of course, as much as I hate identity politics, the fact that you are a woman does make your insights to the men's rights movement unique and insightful. Um, you know, and
Yeah.
I
It's
always learn when I talk to you. Um,
you.
so
That's
we were just actually talking now in a National Coalition for Men meeting, and I don't even know where to start because why don't you start briefly, just kind of introduce yourself, how you got in the men's rights movement, what it means to you, and just kind of, I guess, let it flow from there.
you know, uh, I've been thinking about this upcoming talk with you, and I was like, part of it is going to be how did I, get involved? And the funny thing is, I can't remember. And I have a very good memory. I'm one of those people that's like, can remember things to the detail almost annoyingly. And I'm just like, how did I even come to be a member of the National Coalition for Men? It happened as a whirlwind, I can say. Um, but I'm going to say the thing that women aren't supposed to say, which is that the catalyst for all of this, the catalyst is the man that I'm engaged to. He's the catalyst that brought me to the point of being red pilled and starting my YouTube channel. I started my YouTube channel. That was the beginning of it because I thought, well, I'm a writer and my instinct is to write about this. I once I started seeing the injustices mostly through his eyes that I was completely unaware of, false accusations, domestic violence, etc. I started seeing these injustices and then doing research and realizing it's widespread. And I'm just one of those people that I can't stay silent. I can't just go, well, I hope somebody fixes it. I have to say something. And usually I would write, and I was like, no, that's not where we are right now. People watch videos. So I thought, well, I'll start a YouTube channel. Like, I'll be screaming into the wind. I already know that, and no one's gonna take notice. But at least I'll be doing the right thing. At least I'll be, doing something. And I put out probably 2 or 3 videos, uh, basically a couple explaining how I got to be an anti-feminist, which is basically, we'll say, how I identify. I hate that now, that's been hijacked, but I do. I'm an anti-feminist, came from that angle. And and then I did, shortly after, it happened to be International Men's Day, so I did a video about that, talking about, thank you, men, for building Western civilization. Thank you for our air conditioning. Thank you for the comforts that we have, because I know that you men did it for us women. That was the motivation. Men men don't seek out that sort of comfort for themselves. That's just not who they are. But they do that for the women they love. And so I made an International Men's Day video, and it didn't go viral by any means, but for me, it was big. I mean, I think now that was November of 2020, and now it has like 2,500 views, which for me is huge.
For most people,
And
that's good. Most people will never hit 1,000.
really,
Oh
so I
yeah.
had the concept of that. I'm so naive and inexperienced with all of this YouTube, everything.
And to
So
that point, I'm gonna, of course, just to put this out now, I'm gonna post your YouTube link in this video in the description so people can check it out. I'm
thank
subscribed to you. I think your channel is very interesting. So
Thank you. So I came at it from that point of view, and then I got contacted by someone from uh, the website, and they also have a Facebook page of Feminist Fallacy, they wanted me to write a review of Abigail. Oh gosh, I'm gonna butcher her name because I'm not prepared. But the book about trans little girls, turning, like, getting transformed to boys or whatever. They wanted me to do Irreversible Damage is the name of the book. And they wanted me to do a review. I mean, she watched a few of my videos and she was like, "Would you like to do a review on this book?" And I was like, "What's happening?" I, of course, sure. And then she said, and then after that, you can do a video, which I also have a video talking about that book and my a bit of my review for it. Um, and that video also has over 1,000 views. And that review went up on their website, and I didn't realize it. I was talking to the fiance at this time. I'm like, somebody found me. They want me to write a review. What's going on? So I honestly, I still am like, well, how did I get involved with the National Coalition for Men? I still don't know, but I did, and I'm so glad because now I'm connected to other people who also see the injustices and want to do something about it. So it's a great network, and it's very inspiring because I learn more about more issues like circumcision, which as an anti-feminist, I wouldn't necessarily have gone, that route and been talking about that. But now I of course, am going to.
It's such a normal thing in America. It's something that people don't even question, and it's
Yeah.
why intactivism is one of the harder issues to tackle because it's a source of comedy for most people. They don't understand it. So I recently republished a video about the actual damage that it does and how so many non-Americans think it's completely insane. I
Yeah.
do think it's beginning to sink in though. Just to
I
kind of
think,
go on a side note about circumcision.
well, it definitely warrants it. It's such, I mean, it's mutilation. It's genital mutilation is what it is. And that, to us in America, is in most of the Western world. I mean, that's such a shocking thing when you talk about female genital mutilation. Everyone knows how awful that is and how that has to be stopped. But the fact that male you know, genital mutilation to babies is so normalized, that should show people right there the difference between men and women and how they're looked at. Men are never victims. They're always the oppressor. They're always the bad guy, and women are never the bad guy. And
Yeah,
you know,
it feels like one of the main reasons I get pushback when I talk about circumcision and why it's bad. It always feels like the undercurrents of why people accept it is not because it happens, but because it happens to boys. It's like a guy thing, and so it's just there's some subconscious mental block we have from taking it as
right.
seriously. And
I
maybe it's
think
the
that's
male empathy gap, maybe it's what feminists would call toxic masculinity, but whatever it is, it seems prevalent across our entire lives from birth to death, where when something is specifically a male issue, no matter how horrible it may be, people just don't care. And then you look at, for example, if you're talking about circumcision, you said it's normalized in the West. Even then, I think Denmark tried to either make it illegal or did make it illegal. So circumcision is specifically an American, not only an American problem,
right. More
but
so, more so
but
here.
even in countries that don't practice circumcision, most of them aren't bothered by it. They're bothered by the thought of it happening to them, but when they read about it happening in other countries, they just kind of shrug and go, "Oh, okay." Or when they read about the UN uh, pushing it on African countries and starting campaigns to get millions of boys circumcised, even though the best evidence shows that it really does not protect against
No,
HIV, and the countries with the lowest rate of HIV in the world are the countries with the lowest rate of circumcision in the world, mostly
there
European
you go.
countries. They just don't care.
Right. You're not allowed. It is a kind of identity politics type of a thing. I mean, it really is. It's that men can never be victims. It's the same reason why men are never believed when there's a domestic violence situation. And that was the thing that really brought me into this. As I was getting to know this man that I love so much. We're exchanging, previous stories, and we're walking through each other's history, so to speak. Um, and I'm seeing his life through his eyes, and I'm seeing his previous marriage through his eyes. And you know, he had a butcher knife thrown at him. But here's the thing: he's 6'4", and she was a tiny little thing. So first of all, he can't call the police because all she has to do is lie. And immediately, and his life is in danger actually, because the moment they show up, the fact that they know that it's a domestic violence call, even if even if the dispatcher says, "Oh, it's, female against male," in their head, they're thinking, "No, that they're just programmed. This is a domestic violence call." They see this big huge man who's probably taller than them, bigger than them. He's, they're going to see him as a threat immediately. So that's a threat to his own life, to just have the police show up and immediately think he's a threat, you know. And then all she'd have to do is falsely accuse him. Easy. And then he's in handcuffs. So
And I know
he
you're quite actively involved in false accusation awareness activism.
I try. I try to make that, I think in almost every video, I'm mentioning it one way or the other. Because the other because again, it affected my fiance so much, even in his personal life, because even with friends, he was a member of a church, and breaking up is kind of taboo, divorce kind of taboo. And when he would try to confide in someone he thought was a friend and explain, he literally was told, "That's impossible. Women can't abuse men."
And from the sounds of it, my guess is this church
Yeah,
environment, that friends, that sounds like not a feminist or leftist or progressive audience. That sounds like he was talking to someone more on the conservative side.
exactly.
And
Exactly.
something MRAs will often say is that some of the discriminations and bias that men face are almost parallel on the feminist side and the conservative side. Both of those fears have the same kind of misandry. I can't tell if either for the opposite reason or for the same reason or for both at the same time. But the misandry you see against men, such as the assumption that men can't be victims, you see this on the left, you see this on the right, you see this with feminists, you see this with religious fundamentalists, you see this
Yes.
with people. Really, I mean, all there are even some MRAs who kind of look down upon MRAs who talk about domestic violence, like Joe Rogan. I remember was kind of mocking male victims of domestic violence, which was very, very surprising because I don't agree with everything Joe Rogan says. I'm not some
Right.
huge Joe Rogan fan, but I would at least acknowledge that for the most part, he seems to be at least somewhat aware of how misandry is prevalent in society and just how
Right.
problematic toxic feminism can be and sexism against men and boys can be in the West. And yet he
And
couldn't make that connection, was very disappointing to me.
I hope that he will evolve on that as he's evolved on other things, because the thing about him that I do like is that he tends to be open minded. And so that is very disappointing. But it goes to show how strong the programming is. And this is another thing that I try to show on my channel is how brainwashed we all are or were brought up to be through everything, through school, through music, through movies, through everything. It's everywhere, and it's almost like a little bit everywhere. So it's very covert. And what I mean, it is feminism. And my point where I come from is that the men's rights movement would not be necessary without the evils of feminism. I think that's what's put men in the situation they're in right now. I think the reason why men aren't believed, I think the reason why, you know, men are they face the injustices that they face is a direct result of feminism run amok in the evils.
See, here's where I will both agree and then partially defend feminism. I
Okay.
agree that the problem is when feminism, as you say, runs amok.
Yeah,
It's when feminism gets too toxic, too radical, too extreme. I've said before, do I think there are millions of people in the world who call themselves feminists and are good in people with good intentions? Yes, I do. What the
I
problem
agree.
is are
I
the
agree.
more politically minded feminist academics, lobby groups, many of whom it's more political groups, the more political organizations, who I think many are coming from a place of bad faith, and many are either brainwashing others or being brainwashed themselves. And so I think there's a lot of people who call themselves feminists who honestly believe they're doing the right thing because they're repeating these false stats or these faulty logical arguments, but they really believe them. They really believe the statistics that they're reading. They really fall for the manipulation and the brainwashing. And so in their minds, they really are doing the right thing. So I'm always careful about blaming feminism and making feminism the outright enemy.
And I think that's important, especially you as a man, because otherwise the blowback will be huge.
I
Um,
don't, as I say, I'd rather, you know, build a bridge with honey than dissolving it using vinegar. And I know I just totally screwed that saying up, but
oh
you
no,
know,
I totally, yeah.
but you see what I'm
Um,
saying? Because I guess because the honey would make it stick or something. But
I totally get it, and I agree with you. But here I will also say that I agree with you that I think there are a lot of people that would say they're feminists because they think feminism is about equal rights, because they truly believe that women don't get paid the same as men. They believe that lie. And part of my goal with my channel is to educate those women,
right.
even if the reason they click on it or whatever is because they're like, oh no, how dare she, but then they might go, wait a minute, something might catch their attention, because you know it's a lie. The pay gap is a lie, and I'm not going to go into it right now, but you know um that is a huge one that they bring up. And they do think that we still haven't achieved equal rights, and that's not true either. We haven't achieved equal responsibility. That's something. The draft, for example, women do not have the same responsibility as men do, because to vote, the whole thing with voting in the very beginning was that the deal was, if you were going to vote, you were going to sign up for the draft. And that's a big reason why the majority of women during the period of suffrage, and when we got the vote, the majority of women did not want it. And that's another thing. Don't you think it's interesting that in school we are not taught that? The in American schools, the way that they teach us is, it's like all women fought for the right to vote. And I'm not trying to make the argument right now of whether we should or should not be able to vote. But what I'm saying is, I find it highly suspicious that in our schools we are never taught that the majority of women weren't in favor of it, and why. To me,
Uh,
that proves that they have a narrative.
I
They
mean,
have a
when they talk about the pay gap, they never talk about how, depending on the study, anywhere from men are 10 to 20 times more likely to die at work. 95% of workplace fatalities are men. Men are
right.
expected to do the more dangerous jobs, not always for more pay, and yet that part of the conversation on the wage gap is left out. So you
Right.
have men and women doing comparable roles for nominal or minimum wage, but
Right.
one of them carries a higher risk of death than the other. Why
Right.
shouldn't that be factored when you're
Totally
talking about
should.
overall equality?
And that's the thing with these women that consider themselves feminists. I want to engage with them and have these conversations, because I think that a lot of them are fairly reasonable people, you know, but I think, and I know because I was one of them, you know, I used to consider myself a feminist.
Oh
I
wow,
can,
so I
yeah,
think I might be new. I'm not sure you've told me that before.
yeah, I probably haven't. I mean, I think one of my first videos ever, or my first video, is I used to be a feminist. I used to consider myself a feminist. I believed in the pay gap. I thought we have to fight. We don't have equal rights. I did. I thought that men were the oppressors. I thought, this is awful and embarrassing, but I really believed that most men were potential rapists.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be embarrassed. I mean, it kind of. I have to kind of thank you for proving the point I was making 5 minutes ago of how intelligent, decent people can be brainwashed. And again, let me just say,
Exactly.
feminism does make many good points. Women do deserve equal pay. Rape,
Of
of
course.
course, is a horrible crime and it should be strictly punished.
Right.
Women should have the right to vote, and women's issues are perfectly valid. That is not what MRAs are saying.
Right.
But let me
And
ask you,
that
when you were a feminist, is that what you thought MRAs were saying? Those
I didn't
things?
I never heard of an MRA before.
Okay.
I never knew of the movement until like 5 minutes ago. Literally never knew about it until 2020.
2020,
Never
right.
clue. I
Wow.
had no idea. I came into this completely ignorant. I had no idea. I had no idea of the injustices that men were facing. I had no idea that there was a men's rights movement. I had no idea what an MRA was. I had no idea what MGTOW was. I had no idea. I had no idea. Absolutely, I was completely in mainstream media, everything surface, and I considered myself a feminist.
What's fascinating about that to me, so, is you're not just guessing what you think it's like to be a feminist. You know
Right.
what that mindset. So you've been in both headspaces. You've walked both
Yes.
shoes. And
Yes.
after having experienced both, you choose the men's rights movement.
Exactly.
Wow.
And exactly. And so this is the thing. It's like I I don't hate women and I don't hate feminists. I am a woman and like 5 seconds ago I considered myself a feminist. The thing that I want to convey more than anything is that feminism is a lie. They lied to us. Feminism has lied to women. It has hurt women. I don't know if I can say just as much as it is hurting men, but it has hurt women too because it took choices away from us. I fully believe in freedom. I believe that a woman should be able to go to college and do whatever she wants to do. I'm sure people will see some of my videos and see that I'm pretty traditional and conservative, and I personally want to be the traditional stay-at-home wife, etc. But that does not mean that I don't fully respect women that are out there having their careers and serving society, and I totally do. I think that it's important. But here's the thing, that when I was a child and we'd have career day, for example. Now I'm 44, I should probably say. I'm 44, I turned 45 in August. So being in elementary school in the 80s, so we can get a time reference. Um, and we'd have career day and they'd have like the chiropractor and the so and so, and all the different careers would come, and nobody talked about being a stay at home mom. And if it were ever talked about, it was it was a joke. It was laughed at. Home economics was, we didn't even have that. That was long gone by the time I
Yeah,
was,
I've never home
yeah,
ec. I always thought it was like a movie trope because it was
right,
long gone by the time I went to high school from
right, long gone.
2007 to 2011. It was pretty much extinct.
Yeah. I graduated in 1995 and it was long gone. And the idea of home ec, we knew what it was, but it was a joke. The idea of a stay-at-home woman, she's lazy, she's unmotivated, she's not ambitious, she's wasting her life, she's wasting her talents, all of that. No, that's no, I'm sorry. There are women that is where they excel. You cannot tell me that the mother of Thomas Jefferson was not important, or the wife of Thomas Jefferson, or anybody. Pick an important man, right? Pick an important man, a man who's done great things. He had a mother, and they are such a huge influence in that person's life. I was put in daycare. um I didn't think anything of it when when I was a kid, and when I grew up as a feminist, it's like, well, that's what you do. But the thing is that when I started to see things through my fiance's eyes and get an education on what was really going on, I took a hard look at feminism. I took a hard look at how it affected my life, and I realized all the lies that it spewed. And I realized all the things that it basically said I couldn't do and I couldn't be, which is ridiculous because feminism was supposed to be what we could be, and we could be everything. But you can't be really feminine and you can't be very traditional.
And what I love about what you're saying now, because personally, I would want a relationship where both me and my partner, girlfriend slash wife, whatever, also has a job and also earns income, which you're not saying you're against, you're saying that you support the choice. And what I love about this, and you brought this up earlier today in the past NCFM chat, was this is really showing the diversity of the men's rights movement. And that's really what I want, because you mentioned how in Mike's interview, he said that he's a lefty, and
Right.
you're saying that you're conservative. And his
Yeah.
view is similar to mine. He would prefer a partner that works, and you and your fiance, you obviously like your arrangement where you are a stay-at-home mom. And
Right.
yet, rather than being at odds with each other, no,
Yeah.
oh right, no, right. Sorry.
It's,
Rather than being at odds with each other, we're all on the same side here. And
yeah.
that shows how the men's rights movement is not only very diverse, but maybe peaceful is the wrong word, but it's a very civil, very well connected group. It's
Civil.
such a high quality movement. Like the caliber of people that I meet for the most part in the MRM, some of the most stirring intellectual conversations I have on social issues, relationship, politics, economics happen within the MRM. So I just want to kind of throw that out there.
Yes, I
Yeah,
think that's true. There's a mutual respect we have for one another. We have this mutual respect. And the thing is that it goes completely against what society has tried to do, where I'm traditional. I choose with my fiance, our future will be that I will take care of the home. I will have a lot of responsibilities. I will work hard, um, as will he. This is a choice we have made. And we are both libertarian in our thinking where that's our choice, and then we totally recognize that there are a lot of couples where the way they see it is like he has a career, she has a career, and then they share the so-called domestic, whatever it is. Have your setup, do what it is you guys choose that you think works, that you guys can both get behind, that you think is the best way to live your lives.
couldn't agree more.
And that's all I think we should want for one another. But we have been, it's like but we're not supposed to. I'm supposed to be like, no, she should stay at home, her place is at home, I'm going to tell her where she should be, like as if I'm going to be on the National Coalition for Men meeting, and you've already interviewed Katrina, so I can refer to her. Like I'm going to say to Katrina, hey Katrina, why are you in college, you're wasting your time, you know? And she might have thought that in the very beginning. If she saw a video of mine, she might have been like, uh you know
Yeah, exactly.
like
And
I
be prepared for people to try and spin this interview out of context. If it ever,
Of course,
if this series ever does get big or blow up, trust me, people will come back and they'll
of
make
course,
little 5-second snippets out of context, and they'll ignore the sentence before and the sentence after, and they'll say,
to
"See,
fit
look at
their
what
narrative, of
it's." Yeah,
course
exactly.
they have to. They have to keep spinning their yarn, because that's not who we are. We are not against each other. We are so against the injustices that face men that the differences that we have in opinion, I think, weave us together and make us even stronger, because like it forces people to see that we are not one thing individually. We're one
Hmm.
thing as far as our goal, but individually we are a quilt, we are a patchwork, you
And that's
know.
why it's so ridiculous to me when, and you were also saying this earlier today, just to kind of plagiarize off you, how we are characterized as being this all white male, alt
Ah,
right Republican MAGA group, which is so absurd. Um,
yeah,
as of now, I think the majority of my interview subjects for this series are female, and a good chunk are not even American and or Caucasian. So it's just, it's such an absurd.
yeah,
And again, I hate making it about identity politics, because I hate identity politics, so much. But at the same time, in today's political climate, you kind of cannot talk about politics without race and gender. I'll say
right.
coming into the picture. You just can't.
Well, especially when that's what they're accusing you of, and we sort of have to defend against, because they're putting that on us. They're saying, "Oh, the MRAs are alt right or whatever." Like I'm not even a Trumper, or I'm not a Trump person, which is also going to blow people's weight. You're conservative and you're not a Trump. Or, no, I don't like him. I think he's a buffoon. You
So I
know,
said the same thing in my video about him.
I think he's
I thought he was a
an
bad,
idiot.
he had some good ideas, yes. The liberal media did smear him, yes, but at the same
Right.
time, he was a bad leader and he didn't carry himself well.
He's a complete egotistical. He only did it, become president so he could say he was president. Like, he's an idiot. He's a buffoon. He was an embarrassment. All of the above. But if you say you're conservative, that's why I'm just drawing that. I just want to make it clear because I hate being miscategorized. I hate being categorized, but then to be miscategorized makes it worse. So, like, oh, she's a conservative. Oh, she has long hair. Oh, she's one of those, like female Trumper. I'm not that either. I'm a libertarian. I don't think we need an overlord. But, that's neither here nor there. I believe in freedom, and that is a big part of being an anti feminist. I think that feminism does not bring the freedom that it proposes to bring. That's a lie. It's supposedly, supposed to make women more free by giving us more rights. It's taken away rights. It's taken away the right to be a woman who stays at home and builds her home. It's taken away the right to be respected for doing that. It's taken away the right to learn about that in school as an option.
Yeah,
Nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about how, you know, that was a big change. I mean, in some ways, yes, women have more choices now. They can go to school, all of the above. But women, this whole thing that we used to be so oppressed because we were at home and we were serving our man, we were so oppressed and it was an abusive situation. That is bullshit. That's bullshit. No, women, for the most part, were happy. They were where they wanted to be in their home. They could do what they wanted to do for the most part. Yeah, they cooked and they cleaned, but otherwise their time was theirs. They were not overworked. They were not underpaid. Oh, but they didn't get paid. They had food and a roof over their head and absolute financial security guaranteed. And a man who absolutely adored them and, you know, would give his life for them. That's not the story they tell. They want to say, "Oh, they were abused and they weren't allowed out of the house," and that's not true. Have they not spoken to their grandmothers and their great grandmothers? Where are they getting this from? I don't think it's from oral history, because if they were actually talking to their grandmas, were their grandmas in this situation? Do they look at their own grandfathers and say, "You're an abuser"? I doubt it. And this is for my generation too, because my grandparents, 60 something, 70, or my parents 60 something, and grandparents are deceased now. But I had grandmothers who stayed at home and they weren't abused and they weren't unhappy. Quite the contrary. I tell you what, they weren't having to drink about half a bottle of wine every night. They didn't feel like a failure. So many women today feel like failures. Why? Because they're trying to have it all. They're trying to have more than 100%. They're trying to be the best mom and be the best, at their job. And you can't do both of those things at the same time without one of them suffering. I hate to have to break it to them, but I am the messenger. And you only get 100%. I have a video on this too. If you want to go and be a career woman, that's great. But I do start to have a problem when you choose to have children and have a career and try to say that you're a mother, because what time are you getting home from your job? And what time, who's watching your kid, who's raising your kid, that kind of a thing. And that's a big lie that feminism has told women. And the thing is that, you know, the kids are getting caught up in this, and half of those kids are boys, and then they grow up and they think that their their women need to be strong and tough and all of this, and it's just it's a disintegration of what a woman is. And because you can't be feminine and be that CEO at the same time. You got to be a ball buster. And that's where the career thing kind of goes a little bit awry, because you're not allowed to be a woman in those roles. And feminism doesn't address that either. You have to be more manly in those roles. And that's an issue. And maybe that's because that's what it takes. Maybe that's a conversation that needs to be had.
How do you see things changing in the next, let's say, 15 years or so? How do you think gender roles might look? Let's stick to the US for now. How do you think gender roles will look in 15 years in the US? In the workplace, in relationships?
Well, generally I'm an optimist. Generally. I'm not I hate to say I'm not optimistic.
That's a hard question. I know that
Well,
is kind of a
no,
that is a
I know the answer. I just I it pains me to say it. I
okay.
know the answer. Um,
Look, as I've been telling everyone, this is your interview. This is not a debate. So
sure.
whether I agree or disagree, I encourage my subjects to my interviewees to be as honest as they want.
It's an inner struggle is the problem. Because the optimistic me, I'm such an optimistic person. Like I make people like sick. I've been called Pollyanna. Like my optimism is nauseating. However, in this, I don't see it getting better. Sadly, I don't. I think that it's going to be worse. I think that the way things are going, I mean, look at the Supreme Court justice that's, trying to get through right now. She was picked because she is partially, half of it is because she's a woman. She was picked because she's a woman. The vice president was picked because she's a woman. I think there's going to be more of that. There's so many women out there that are like, well, I think we need a female president. So, okay, the qualification is that she has a vagina. I think that there's going to be more of that, unfortunately, because this is such a hard, the lie of the pay gap and all of that, the lie that women are not equal. It is ironclad. And I think it'll get worse, unfortunately. And I think it's tearing down society. So a lot of people would say, well, then why do you do what you do if you think there's no hope? I do think it'll get worse. But the thing is that that doesn't mean that some people can't be rescued. It doesn't mean that I can still make a video that a man can feel heard and feel like, okay, I'm not crazy for thinking this. Um, I'm not terrible because I'm a man. Maybe he sees the International Men's Day video. Maybe he sees one of my videos talking about how they're treated as disposable. And he goes, yeah, I was treated that way. And maybe he won't blow his brains out because
Uh,
the male suicide rate is crazy. So I think it'll get worse. I really do. I think that feminism will get worse, and I think that men will be treated worse.
See,
Um, they will be second class citizens, even more than they are now.
I think I'm somewhat more optimistic. I think that the MRM message, kind of the men's rights philosophy, is slowly but surely, and not even all that much more slowly anymore, beginning to win through, and has been winning through actually for a while. I see us growing in a positive direction.
I really hope you're right, and I hope I'm wrong.
So,
I want to be
well,
wrong
one
so
way or another, we will find out, I suppose. So,
bad.
stick around and stay healthy because there's a whole world in life coming ahead of us.
Yeah,
Um, so okay. Um, this was great. Um,
having me.
absolutely. Thank you for being on. I'm going to link the YouTube your YouTube channel in the description below.
Thank you.
This was another video of exactly what I wanted it to be. Just getting to know who is a men's rights activist, what do we believe, and I hope people are noticing the theme in this series is how some of you have already not contradicted each other per se, but some
Yeah,
of you have opposing views. And that's kind of the point of this thing is I don't want to show you 10 people in a row who all think exactly the same thing. I want to show people faces of the men's rights movement.
I,
And I gotta say, Erin, today's video was excellent. And I thank you so much for
yours
your
too.
time.
Thank you so much.